One of the best ways to improve open and conversion rates on Marketo campaigns and ensure accurate linking of new leads to accounts is to enrich the data on your incoming records. You want to be able to send your message to the right business and the right personas. And obviously, having the right business and personal data is prerequisite to this level of personalization. In this video, I'm going to show you how to enrich B2B person records with business information like size of company, annual revenue, headquarters location, amount of capital raised, technologies used, and so forth. I'm also going to show you how to segment B2B person records by department, level, and title. Lastly, we'll discuss how to enrich your person records all the way down to the people's likes and interests. And I'm also going to show you how to verify incoming email addresses to ensure you're not getting spam trap emails. Today we're going to talk about DMS enrichment feature. DMS enrichment is available within several of the DMS functions, including dedicated DMS enrichment function that directly will update and enrich records in your Salesforce, list import, which will also import new records as they're imported into Salesforce, and through the web submission function, which will call a Marketo webhook, for example, to enrich new records as they were created. I will be demonstrating how DMS enrichment feature works within web submission, but the setup is essentially the same in all of these functions. Also, DMS enrichment allows you to do features such as verifying email, appending contact information such as social addresses, work address, direct dial phone numbers, and company contact information such as firmographics like your annual revenue, the company's annual revenue, their headquarters address, their DUNS number, their ticker, and so forth, number of employees. So within web submission, which we've already demonstrated in a previous video, we'll be diving into the web submission that we created in that video, and we'll go directly to the map fields section, which is where you enable enrichment and where you would map the enrichment elements to fields on your records. So within the enrichment section, you would go to this portion to choose the enrichment package that you want to use. One of those, for example, would be to choose the contact information enrichment. You can also get direct dial phone number enrichment. You can also choose to verify emails, both their work email as well as their secondary personal email. And you can choose firmographic enrichment for company information. Finally, you can choose the normalization option, which would allow you to normalize things such as proper names, web URLs, addresses, and so forth. And finally, you can also choose to verify phone numbers. After you've chosen the enrichment packages that you'd like to apply, when you scroll down into the field mapping for the various objects in your Salesforce instance, you'll notice that some of the enrichment elements have already been mapped to existing standard fields, things like revenue. And in fact, if you notice when you have a gold star next to that, there's a fill rate because we've discovered over time that we're able to guarantee an average fill rate that you'll experience with certain data elements based on the validity of the sources we use for this data. You can also get their individual's work address for the city, state, country, zip, And you can also add a standard company name, which is typically averages 100% fill rate. Additional fields, standard fields, would be number of employees, personal fax numbers, first name, industry, mobile phone numbers, direct dial phone number, in the state for their work address, their job title, website URL corresponding with their company, and their zip, work zip. Within custom fields, though, there are enrichment elements that are available to you as well, but we don't automatically map those because you may use a name that's different from our enrichment element name. So in the case of an About Me social address, you can come down, click on that, type in the first few characters of that enrichment element and choose it, and it will be mapped to that field. Now, the default action for enrichment is to only update the field if blank, but you may choose other options, which I'll illustrate in a moment. For example, if in the case of the annual revenue, you may actually want to overwrite that value if it already exists with the larger number. So in that case, you would choose the raise option. If you wanted to be more conservative, you could choose the lower option. And in the case of add increment, that would actually add two values together, which you wouldn't want to do with revenue, but it is useful to use with things such as lead scores, which I'll illustrate in a moment. Now I'm almost done. If the individual has a blog, we also have information that you can put in their personal blog and map that. The Facebook account that corresponds to their company or their personal Facebook, in this case, because of the field being dedicated for the company Facebook, we'll put that in. Same with the LinkedIn enrichment element. That would also be for a company as well. So we'll choose that, but you could also have a field for their personal LinkedIn. And finally, let me illustrate the increment feature with let's look for all of our score fields. And you do perform a similar mapping for your contact object for the fields that are related to it. You won't have any company fields typically, either standard or custom on a contact object. And finally, the account object, we typically wouldn't have you be doing an update during typical enrichment unless you're doing it directly through a function like DMS enrichment, where you'd actually directly update the account itself rather than triggering on some trigger such as a new lead being created, a new contact being created. So let's show an example of enrichment actually occurring on a form submission. So after we've set up the enrichment within the DMS web submission, let's see an example of it in action with the Marketo webhook. So we have an individual that comes to our website and enters her information and submits the form. So let's go over into Marketo now and see that new person and what's happening with their record. There's the new record. Let's look at the detail in the activity log. So you can see the new lead being created from the fill out form submission, the RingLead DMS webhook being called, and immediately you can begin to see enrichment elements being updated on the record, such as the person's location, their title, industry, annual revenue, number of employees, country again, city, postal code. This also indicates that RingLead's finished processing the record, but there's still some additional dated value changes that it's making, such as the mobile phone number, her direct dial phone number, and her Facebook location for their company, the fax number, and the company LinkedIn address. If we had added more elements, it would have enrichment elements, we would be able to see those here as well. You can also see that the incoming email address has been verified as valid. So that concludes the presentation of our enrichment feature.